Hey there, welcome back. This week we're going to talk about engines. We're going to talk about this 383 right here. We're going to talk about, there's a 440 right behind me, and there's another one next to it that's still bagged up. I'll unbag that shortly. But yeah, we're just going to talk about some engines and the engines we plan on building on the channel. And some of the parts that are going to go into those engines, camshafts, cam specs, cylinder heads, and what I'm running on my engine, what my customer's running in his engine, intake manifolds, carburetor choices. Haven't really made any of those yet for myself. He has a thermoquad for his because it's a 73, and that's what it would have came with. So we'll just dive right into it. This right here is a 1970 383. It was originally a 2-barrel motor, and it was in my turquoise 1970 Polara wagon. This time on Roadkill, we're taking this 70 Polara wagon and we're driving it 8 miles down the road so I can do some sweet burnouts and donuts in the snow. Best day at work ever. I had the car running. I actually drove the car a short distance. It leaked coolant out of every single orifice as far as freeze plugs go. I don't think it had head gasket problems because the motor ran pretty good. It didn't smoke, it didn't knock, it didn't tick. I didn't have any real concern with the condition of the engine. However, all the leaky freeze plugs, it kind of drove me to pull it out, and I wanted to do a new oil pump, clean out the pan and the pickup, do oil pan gasket, just the basics to make it a reliable engine once again. And it kind of snowballed a little bit. I found some cylinder heads locally on Craigslist. They're 5/16s, so I bumped the compression up a hair. So that's kind of good. Some people like the closed chamber, some people don't. I happen to like them. I haven't had a reason to not like them yet. They're good to about 5,000, 5,500, which, I mean, in a C-body, that's probably about all you're going to get out of them unless you're building a race motor. What else? I've got a cam in it. It's a Summit Racing cam. I came across this camshaft browsing through the Summit Racing website, over the years, and I seen it, and I figured one day I would find an engine to use it in. And well, that day has came. And it's a Summit 6401. It's a 466 intake, 488 exhaust. The advertised duration's 298,303. I don't know why this cam card has an error on it, but the website says 298 and 303. So that kind of makes me wonder. The lobe separation's 114. The power band is from 2,000 to 5,500, so I believe it should work pretty good with this. It says something about a mild converter, 2,000 stall plus. I believe if you look in the parts book, the factory ones all kind of stall right around there, so I might be okay. I might put a better converter in it. We'll see. I don't know what gear ratio I want to run in this wagon, but it's probably going to be a 355, maybe a 391. If I can get my hands on a 410, maybe that. I don't know. But that's where I'm at for a cam on this one. And here, I'll go ahead and pull this stuff off. I got my gold Moroso valve covers and an Edelbrock DP4B. It's a pretty cool intake. One of my friends really likes that intake. He talks about it all the time. So yeah, these are just the look I'm going for on this one is kind of going to be like the day two, something you would have seen in the 80s or 90s under the hood of probably not a C-body, but like a Charger or a muscle car of some sort. But to me, the C-bodies, these are big muscle cars. They're cooler than the muscle cars, in my opinion. I mean, a Charger's pretty cool, but so is a Polera. So let me get this stuff off of here and I'll unbag it. So here it is unbagged. And it really doesn't make too much of a difference here. Let's see here. What do we got? Here's some learning for some people that aren't aware. I know there's a lot of people that are following this that know a fair to good amount, if not a lot more than I do when it comes to Mopars. But for anybody that's looking to learn, on a 383 low deck engine, you have an identification pad right here. F is for 1970, and that says 383. And then this would have been the date this engine was assembled, 8/27 of 70. And the R, I believe, would be Windsor, Canada. I'm not 100% sure on the R, but I believe that's what it would be. And then sometimes you'll see a 1 or a 2 here. That would be first or second shift, so days or nights. Here it is. Here's my 516 heads. I believe these are 440 source stealth springs. I found these locally on Craigslist. They were here in town, so a guy said he ran them for about 12 passes and blew up the bottom end on his 400, and he wanted to get rid of them. So I went and picked them up off of Craigslist, right over in Machesney Park. Not a whole lot to look at, but here's the motor. The new freeze plugs in it. Let's see if I can get some casting dates here. I believe that says 8/13 of 69. There's the block number. There's the number again. Looks like it was cast at night. And there's the little time. Not sure what that says, because I don't know how to read old coot clock, but I'm sure I could figure it out. And then there's the VIN, and that does match my turquoise wagon's VIN. So you got 70, R for Windsor, and then my sequence number. So that's basically it for this motor. I think I still need to put an intermediate shaft in it. And what else? I have a new fuel pump for it. I'm mainly waiting for it to warm up a little bit so I can spray it down and get it all prepped to paint blue. I'm going to paint the block and the heads blue, and then I'm going to get the intake blasted so it's nice and shiny. And then I'm going to run the gold valve covers like I discussed, and just kind of have that day two look to the car. So that's this 383. For those interested in this motor, that's its story. And its story is to be continued. Before we jump into our next engine, I'm going to show you guys something pretty neat. Some of you guys are aware of this, but I'm doing this for the people that are not aware of the differences and what to look for and what not to look for. And also, one of my favorite aftermarket items that just eliminates a problem that Chrysler made from the factory. So here it is. Okay, what do we have here? We have two. These are both 187 oil pans. This one's a little bit beat up, but you can see it. That's a 1, an 8, and a 7. And this one, 187. Outside, they are identical. I mean, dang near the same. Besides, this one's hammered. This one's a little beat up. You can see I heated it, and there was a pretty good crease there I was able to work out of it. And there was another ding right here up in the corner that I didn't get it completely out, but it is much better than it was. So, I'm going to show you the differences in them. Let's start with this one. This is your typical 187. This is what you will find on most 69, 72, 71, 72-ish. And then they switched. It's the same part, but they changed the number. I don't know why there was a difference. It's a 699 pan, but they're identical. So for all purposes, they're the same, besides the part number. But this is what you typically find. Now this one's dirty, but nothing really special here, right? Okay. Now let's move on to this one. So you got your 187 pan here that looks the same as that one. Let's flip it over. What the heck? There's baffles in here. These are factory baffles. Spot welded. It helps keep the oil down here. Keeps it from sloshing around. The reason this exists, chances are good this came off of a U-code 440. So the HP motor. Most of the HP motors would have this one. Cop cars, GTs, Hearsts, special order cars. This is what you would get in an HP car. So, something neat. Definitely look out for it at the swap meets. If you see something with a 187 that's sitting here like this and it's got blue paint on it, chances are good it's going to look like that. But you never know unless you flip it over and take a look. Don't know how sought after they are, but it's kind of cool. And if you're going to build something you're going to, you know, drive like me, you're going to want this one. Moving on to where Chrysler screwed up. Well, they didn't really screw up, but I don't know what they were thinking. So here we have, this is a factory windage tray. This is what you would use on your oil pan. It'd probably go something like this. Here, let's see if I can show you guys real quick. Needed to bring my GoPro over, but I spaced. It goes something like that on the bottom of your motor. And this keeps oil from splashing up onto the crank, slowing it down as you're going. But the problem is, you got to put a gasket there, in between the oil pan and the tray, and then another one between the tray and the block. So you have two chances for it to leak, which is really probably not good. Using cork and RTV, yeah, you can get it to seal up. If you want to be absolutely factory correct, you can use this. But this is my secret weapon. This is another Summit Racing part. There's the part number. It's Summit G2339. It's a big block Mopar windage tray for a stock clearance. They do have one for a stroker crank, and you can get that as well. So, here it is. This thing is awesome. You don't need very much RTV, if any at all. I put a little bit because I don't like leaks. It's plastic or composite, whatever this is made out of. It's got silicone here. And you don't need the metal tray anymore. This is the metal tray. This is the oil pan gasket. It's awesome. I'm running these in my black car, and its oil pan doesn't leak. I believe we're running one of these in Medina. Its oil pan doesn't leak. It's really good. It's a really good product. It's cheap. I believe it's $45. I mean, you can't go wrong. Here's the part number again. Summit Racing Big Block Mopar Windage Tray. G2339 from Summit Racing. All right. This is my personal motor. It's a 7440 I got from my friend Steve in California. On 440s, the identification pad is up top right here. You can see, again, we got an F. That means 1970. F440. There's no HP stamp, unfortunately, but that's okay. I don't care about that as much as others do. It was built December 17th on second shift, and I believe it was scheduled to go to Jefferson. I don't know if it was built at Jefferson, but it's C, if my memory is correct, is Jefferson Assembly. Let's see. I had the motor ready to go. I'm not liking a couple of my measurements on it, so instead of going with the standard bore stuff, I had initially gotten ready for it. I located a 30 over rotating assembly. It's unfortunate. I got to take the block back to the machine shop and get it bored 30 over, but it's just going to run better. The measurement I'm not liking is My piston ring gap on one or two of the cylinders is inconsistent with the rest. It'd probably run, but it might not run as well as it could, and it needs to run perfect. I won't just... I could slap it in and say, oh yeah, it's rebuilt, but I want, oh yeah, that motor kicks ass. This old curmudgeon I discussed these things with and learn a lot from told me it would be like running with one leg that's a little bit shorter than the other. You could do it, but you won't be able to do it as good as you could with even length legs. So that was his analogy for me, and that's the analogy I'm going to use here on why I'm going to take it back to the machine shop. So here's a glimpse of what's going into this motor. We have my forged crankshaft. I believe the gentleman I got the rotating assembly from said it was from a 68 440. It's all been balanced and polished, and it was in a running motor that I think he said the block cracked. The crank is ground 10 and 10 on the mains and rod journals. They're standard LY rods with 30 over TRW L2266 pistons. The camshaft I've chosen for this motor is a Comp Cams XE274H. The advertised durations, 274 on the intake, 286 on the exhaust. Valve lift, 488 and 491 with a 110 lobe separation. I have a few friends that have used this cam, and they are pretty happy with the results, and I hope to be as well. Moving forward, we got my intake manifold I've chosen. I bought this on a wholesale from, let's see, it was an Edelbrock closeout sale on Mancini Racing. And, well, when it arrived at the house, I was super excited to see that they sent me the Mopar one. I didn't ask for this. It's just the way it went. I guess they had a surplus or an overstock of these. And this is the one I got. I think it's really cool. It's awesome. It says Mopar and Wedge. I mean, it's really cool. It's even got these little Mopar M's down here on the heat crossovers that I believe are blocked off. Nope, that's open. So yeah, that's going to be pretty neat. And then we got right here my cylinder heads. I had these redone. I found them on Facebook. I was really excited about them. I took them to the guy and said, hey, can you check these out? And he said, they're absolutely garbage. You need to have them redone. So I did. And I'll probably never do it again, because getting a set of cast iron heads redone, unless you really want them, you might as well just go and buy the aluminums. And it's really unfortunate that that's how it is these days. They're 5/16s with 174 and 208s. Once again, I like the closed chambers. So that's the cylinder heads I plan on using for this motor. Overall, I'm not looking for much out of it, but I think this should run pretty good. As far as the carburetor goes, I'm going to look into a 750 or 850 Edelbrock AVS2. And yeah, I believe this motor will end up in the black car. Maybe. It might end up in the green car. I'm not sure yet. The plan originally was for it to go into the black car. The motor that's in the black car at this point, it's for my father's project, which will be featured on the channel. It's going to be pretty neat. It's going to be different. It's not a C-body. Well, it's not really any body, but it's going to be really cool. And I think people are really going to like it. But that's where the motor in the black car will eventually be going. We're going to pull it out, freshen it up a little bit, and then it'll go into his project. So this is my 7440. Before we move on to the next one, this is the stuff I had initially redone for the motor. It's the standard bore pistons. I got these brand new Speed Pro pistons off Summit Racing for $66. Thought it was a great deal. I knew it was a screw up, so I figured I'd buy a set, because I mean, 8 pistons for $66. How could you go wrong? It's regular LY rods. I had ARP bolts put in them. I had the crank polished, all this is balanced and ready to go. But like I said, I wasn't happy with some of my measurements, and I have this stuff just sitting here. What am I going to do with it? Well, I've decided, or I'm planning to, when I get the black car's motor apart, when I unbury this and get it apart, you can see these two are the ones that have some pretty nasty stuff going on inside of them. When I get this apart, I'm going to take it to my machinist, and I'm going to have him check it for cracks. And hopefully it's not cracked. And if we can move forward with it, I'm going to see how the other 6 cylinders clean up. And if he only has to sleeve these bottom 2, great. If I have to have him sleeve all 8, well, so be it. I want to run the standard bore parts in this 440. I don't really have a reason for that, besides the fact I just have the stuff to build it. So that's my option with that. I hope I can save this motor. It's really important that it goes back into its car. And there is one more option or chance on hand to use the standard bore rotating assembly I have. And that would be in this motor. And this is the 70 Monaco Wagon that I showed you guys in the pilot. The motor turns by hand. I think one of my next videos, we're going to try and make this run. Let me know in the comments if you want to see me make this run as is. Maybe even drive. We're not going to push it. Running would be cool. Driving would be better. It turns by hand. I've pulled plugs out and put oil down the cylinders. So I guess the next thing would be to try and make it run. But yeah, if all else fails, this block might be savable as well, as far as keeping it standard bore. So I have a few options for that standard rotating assembly I had redone. Now I'm going to cover the final engine, and it's the one for this car right here, the 73 Chrysler New Yorker Brougham. So let's get into it. This is the 440 that came out of that car. Like I said, the seller told us it ran good, and that he drove it, and we took his word for it, which wasn't necessarily a mistake. Not everyone is a jerk, and maybe he didn't know, because I didn't know at first what was going on. I tried everything that was simple before diving in to tearing the engine down. What tipped me off to it was talking to the old curmudgeon and Tim, Sixpack RT, about the condition of his U-Code car and how it ran when he first picked it up. He said it didn't seem to run right, it ran rough, and it smoked a lot. Well, the old curmudgeon, I imagine he's experienced this several times throughout the years. He knew right away what it was. And he said, you've got a lifter that's popped out and a bent pushrod. And with listening to them discuss that, it kind of hit me like, oh crap, I know where to go next. And sure enough, I tore the valve covers off of this motor in the car. And I discovered not one bent pushrod, but 2 or 3. I want to say it was 2 or 3. It may have been more. but it was definitely more than one, and it would explain why we were running the way we were running. Which is I will never forget the lesson I learned there, and I will know that symptom right away. It's smoking. It runs like crap. It's not a carb or fuel issue. It's not a spark issue. It's a valve train issue. Something is wrong. So like I said, I tore the valve covers off, found that, and discussed it with the customer, told him like, hey, you know, this is what we can do. I can throw some push rods back in it and try and, you know, get the lifters to go. I don't think they had popped out completely of the lifter bores. And he said, no, I don't think that's a good idea. Let's pull it out and go through the motor. So we did. I put the motor on the stand, tore it all down, and I took it all to the machine shop. They had to bore it 30 over. The cylinders were just out of round enough to where it was a problem, so we had to bore it 30 over. He didn't have to turn the crank, which was good. One of the factory cylinder heads, it has two 13 casting heads on it because it's a 73. Now it's a weird intermediate year head. I'm sure people hear 213 and say, what the heck is that? I've never heard of that. So the way typically it went, like 68 to 70, you'd find 906 heads. 71 and 72, you'd find 346 casting heads. And sometime in 72 and 73, you'd find this 213 casting head. And then in 74, I believe, is when they came out with the 452, which is a lot of guys like to run those because they got hardened seats and they're ready to run on unleaded fuel. So, it's a little quick go through of the cylinder head casting numbers. But anyway, so one of the cylinder heads was cracked. I had to go down to Oregon, Illinois, to a yard called Mopar City and speak with my good old friend Larry and say, hey, I need a cylinder head. I know you guys have it. Let me come on down and pick it out. And I went and got him another core. I took it to the machine shop and they rebuilt the heads for us. And yeah, so this is the short block. I've already gotten the crank in. Actually, I shouldn't say it's a short block. It's the short block in progress. I've already measured the main clearance. They're at 2000s, which is pretty much perfect. Spins nice. The next thing up to do is we're going to measure the rod clearances, rod bearing clearances. That's coming up here pretty soon. Yeah. We had him balance. This is an externally balanced motor. So he did what they call as a Sportsman Balance, which is where he weighed everything and got everything either exactly the same weight in grams or within a gram or two. Because the balance on these motors is made up by the harmonic balancer and then weights on the torque converter on the transmission. Actually, should be able to see them. Well, no, you can't because of the way I have the bar. Maybe, let me see if I could zoom down in there. I think that would be one of the counterweights. Yes. Yep, you'd see it right there. But that is how Chrysler balanced the externally balanced motors. So that's what we got. Here, let me flip it over. All right, I got it flipped right side up. Let's see, here we got the casting date, 2/28/73. Oh, it's 49 years from tomorrow to the day. Got the VIN number right here, C258657. You can faintly see the 3, but C258657. Let's go look at the car. What do we got here? C258657. That's the numbers matching motor. Let's see, what's the scheduled production date here? 3/31, so March 31st. When was this engine assembled? We got it greased to protect it. It's working pretty good for the most part. So we got J440, and oh, that's weird. This engine was assembled on 4/3. That goes to show that the scheduled production date doesn't mean that's the day the car was built. Maybe that's the day the idea of the car came to fruition, but doesn't necessarily mean the car was being built that day, because this engine wasn't built until 4 days later. Very interesting. But anyways, moving on. These are the internals for that motor. Let's start with the rotating assembly. We've got brand new pistons. These are Speed Pro L2266F. They're 30 over. We got the rods are reconditioned. Got Hastings rings is what we're going to be using. I asked my machinist to supply all of this stuff, so I didn't order any of the wrong parts. So if anything's wrong, it's on him, but I don't think so. He usually knows pretty good about what's going on. Let's go to the cylinder heads that we had redone. Like I said, I had to chase one down there at Mopar City. You see the 213 casting number. All redone. I think we had to get some new valves because a couple of them were bent. Very nice job though. These springs came out of the K Kit for the Lunati cam. So these are pretty much ready to go. Got to start building it. I do see a little bit of surface rust starting on some stuff, but it'll come right off. And then we got the cam. We went with the Lunati 102-307-02. I got the specs right here on the cam card. There we go. 475 intake, 494 exhaust. Where's the duration? 265, 271, 220, and 226 at 50. I do believe this is on a 114 or 112 lobe separation. I thought it was 114, but I think that's actually the Summit cam that we were talking about earlier. This one makes its power between, if my memory is correct, it's 1400 to 5800. There's a cam in the box. And then, like I said, we got the K Kit, so we got the Lunati lifters and the 3-bolt Lunati timing chain. And then we went ahead and ordered Lunati Pushrods too. So just all of the valve train matches along with the valve springs and the cylinder heads. So no mix match parts. That's one of the biggest things a lot of people do, is they just go ordering stuff like crazy and wonder why it doesn't work. And it's because they have the wrong combination of parts. You have to make sure all of your components are going to work together. It's like a recipe for cooking dinner. Or cooking any meal. It doesn't necessarily have to be dinner. So, if you want it to be good, you got to make sure it's all going to work together. And all of this, I've done some research, should work pretty well for this big heavy car. Let's see, we got a Melling oil pump. Just a standard volume. This isn't a high volume or high pressure. This is just a standard M63. The Gates water pump that we always choose to run. I don't like that. China's not our friend. But it's the Gates. We've used a lot of them, so they must be pretty good. And then also, like I said, this is the carburetor we're going to use. We had this rebuilt by Woodruff Carburetors initially, thinking it was one of the issues. So it should be good to go. So that's the 73-440 that we're going to build. This is going to be the first one we do, because I've already started on it. Like I said, next up we have to do the rod bearing clearances with plasti gauge. Check those all out, make sure they're, I think we're looking for 2 thousandths there as well. And then we're going to measure the piston ring gap. I think we're looking for about 23 to 25,000, something around there. I'd have to check the book to be 100% sure. And then it's time to start slamming pistons in and getting this thing wrapped up. And I have a bunch of stuff I still need to take over to get cleaned. The oil pan, the valve covers, intake manifold I want to have cleaned. I would clean it myself, but it's just the time-consuming part of it. If I had a big solvent tank or something, that would be the way to go. But I don't, so I'm going to take them to my machine shop and have them hot tank them all. And it would be a lot quicker and probably get it cleaner than I'd ever be able to get it anyway. So, and here's all the gaskets for this motor. Let's see, we got FelPro exhaust manifold gaskets with the little heat shield. Those are kind of nice. I know if you're a purist, you know these cars, there is no exhaust manifold gaskets from the factory. They didn't do that. Everything was machined precisely to where gasket was not necessary. However, over time, things change. We've used these before in the past, and they're pretty good. And also, they tend to keep the heat with this little shield here. Keeps the heat off of the valve cover gasket and keeps it from cooking it. We got your basic FelPro kit, you know, the whole master kit. That oil pan gasket I showed you guys earlier is in here. And yeah, that pretty much covers this motor. And that is all the elements to this motor. We got gaskets, the other cylinder heads in one of these, that box right there. And yeah, this is the first one we're going to do. So that's what I've got this week. We talked about a couple motors that we're going to be doing here. We're going to start with the 73 motor for the Chrysler. We're going to finish up that 383 for the other wagon. Probably get it in the car and broken in. We're going to get my numbers matching motor for the black car. We're going to get it dug out. We're going to pound the pistons out of that and get it over to the machine shop and hopefully see if it can be saved. We're also going to get the other motor over to the machine shop and get it board 30 over so I can put it together. And I think we're going to go get that motor running in the wagon. Let me know in the comments if you want to see me try and make that motor run. The last plates on it are from 1974, so that's going to be pretty interesting. But it does turn over, so that's a huge plus. But anyways, like I said, that's where we're at. I'm going to put some links in the description below of some of the products I discussed, some of the parts we're going to be using. I want you guys to like, subscribe, tell your friends. And until next time, take it easy.